Hello everyone. I would like to introduce a new video with Charles today, but before addressing this topic, we just wanted to mention something which is very important for us. You know, this is free content, so after the video, feel free to share, comment and like this video, to share it in your different communities. Again, it's a free content, it's very important for us in order to get rewarded, that at least you put a comment and like on it. And like that, we will know if this kind of topics or subject that we are addressing is interesting for you or not. Speaking about a new topic, I want to address with you, Charles, a new kind of it, that will be the differentiation between knowledge, comprehension versus realization. So for the beginning, I will try to put some definition on it. I will do the definition of knowledge and definition of realization. So definition of knowledge refers to the possession of information, facts or skills acquired through learning or experience. For example, knowing the capital of France, knowing the capital of United States, and so on. Realization is more like means a sudden or profound understanding of something, often accompanied by a feeling of clarity or insight. For example, for instance, realizing the important story of life lessons or understanding the interconnectedness of all things. In short, the differential between knowledge and realization. Realization may be based on knowledge, but it goes beyond it. And in order to finish, realization can lead to a deeper understanding and appreciation of knowledge, and this is a more thing that differentiates these two notions. Quote from Buddha: realization lies in practice. Again, as we mentioned in the precedent video, the importance of action, the importance of practice. And my first question will be for you, Charles. Is it correct to say realization cannot be understood?
Exactly. Realization cannot be understood by the intellect because it interferes with that realization. So realization is more of intuition than from the intellect, from reasoning something. You are, at that moment you are in the practice of something. You're in the action of something. You can be, if you want to learn about science and you talk to a scientist, then you are in the action of learning about science, you see. So, because you're talking to a scientist, or you're talking to, if you want to discover how a child functions, then you ask him questions. You're in the action. You observe him, etc., etc. Any science is the premise of any science is observation of that particular science. So realization is in the action of something, and comprehension or knowledge is from the intellect, the memory, etc. So it's not as accurate as a realization. A realization makes you see or observe in your daily life in a different way. You see, it's more vague, it's more global. So that's fundamentally the difference.
As you mentioned, it's very important when you're speaking with a scientist, and even when we considering the days when we were young. At the beginning, we were almost focused on realization because we were like testing and experiencing a lot of things, like the scientists today. But why today's all humanity will be stuck at only comprehension, only knowledge, and they will go no more in this realization perspective and realization process.
Because most people are influenced by the collective consciousness, see? And the collective consciousness is mainly involutive or psychological. So you go to school, you're pressed to understand right away or retain right away, you see? And the ability or the intelligence of a child or a person is based on that, instead of just the main principle of absorbing the information, see? And at the systemic level, just absorbing the information, just be disposed to absorb the information is sufficient, in the sense that it registered naturally. See, the information just registered. There's no interference from the mind, from trying to comprehend something or acquire a knowledge. You see, through comprehension. So there's always interference. That's why people function in that way. So it's prevalent in society. If you ask someone about that, they'll try to convince you that the intellect is the nec plus ultra, you know. So it's a capacity, it's a quality, but it's not everything. See, we function by vibration, in the sense that a child functions by learning through action. You see, so it registers that way. Just depending on the intellect is not enough. See, you force yourself to remember and everything. So it's and you get used to that way of being, way of absorbing information. It's always forced, see, instead of just exposing yourself to the information. But it's very hard for an individual that's used to trying to comprehend right away or understand right away, and he tries to retain everything he is exposed to, all the information he is exposed to. So he's used to that. The education he's educated that way. Teachers, that's the way they teach, that's the way they see learning. But learning is more than that. If you look at a child, he learns by experience, action. A child doesn't have the intellectual capacity of even a 12-year-old or an adult, you see. So he learns by vibration, by the action. He learns very fast because he's in the experience. That's the big difference.
And today, with all of this amount of knowledge that we acquired through the days, through the years, we kind of lose this ability to stay focused on the experience, stay focused on the empirical practices, and more be focused on the capacity of memorizing right away. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned something very important, the fact that the people, the human being, are able to memorizing by design. They don't need to pretend to be focused on the facts, that they need to stay focused to record the information. You can, explore this thing, like every human are able to memorizing even without knowing it.
I don't get the exact question.
Sorry, it's like the human being is able to record all the information without even being aware of it.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times people experience that kind of experience, and they're very surprised that it works like that, because they're not used to that. It happens in one's life, sometimes often, and they're all surprised that it works like that. But they don't know about the mechanism of the system, so they're not aware. They don't realize that that's the way we learn. You see, we learn by being exposed to something, not by trying to understand right away what it is. Yeah. It's a question of being impregnated by the information. You absorb the information without trying to understand. Otherwise, there's always an interference. So it doesn't register as much or in percentage as it should. There's always the interference. That's basically the involutive psychological consciousness. Most people function like that, so it's normal. See, but the intellectual or the psychological capacity is mainly to use that capacity to observe what's going on in matter, in the action. You see, what's really going on, the mechanism, etc. To realize, to be aware of. You see, but you can't be aware of that if you're thinking all the time when someone talks to you or informs you of something, especially something new to you. Then you interpret all the time. So that interpretation is the interference. You see, there's a resistance to that. That's why Buddha, let's say, would say, well, it's in practice. Realization is in practice, because in practice you don't have time to think or to try to understand the experience. You are in the experience. So you have a better chance to realize in the experience. It's very subtle.
This thing regarding the experience is the capacity of absorb this new information. That makes me think about a word that you put in your previous video regarding the ability to be available, disponible. Can you go on this new notion, how a human being can be available to new information?
Okay. Well, the only way you can be available to new information or to absorb new information or information is to be able to observe what the interference, in other words, observe what's going on in his mind. You see? If he can observe or be aware of what's going on, then he is automatically more disposable. You see, he's more available, excuse me. He's more available that way. Every time he thinks, it starts thinking in a certain way, then if he can observe that, he's automatically open to that information. He's available. And once he's available, then he can absorb the information and then realize, because he's in the action of absorbing that information. See, people don't see it as an action, but it is an action. It is you are in the experience when you do that. See, that's why there's a bigger possibility of realizing then, because you are in the action, and because you are you have the capacity to be conscious of what's creating the resistance. See, to absorbing the information. So the contact, let's say, with a person that's adjusted, the more adjusted to the system, is very important, because that's the only way that a person, if he observes the resistance or the the interference, it's the only way to start awakening to that reality. See, otherwise it's more, the person can't see it. It's totally revealed to him. That's why humanity is has the consciousness it has at the moment, and it perpetuates itself continually from generation to generation, because people are not exposed to that, to another reality or to systemic reality, because they filter all the notion that they can hear or absorb. They filter it through their own knowledge, see, and to the knowledge of other generation that didn't see anything about the system. So they perceive symbolically the system. See, they entitize the system. They anthropomorphize the system. They see people, personality instead of a mechanism. See, so it's very. It's all over the world. People have all kinds of symbolic way or knowledge through symbolism explaining life, you see. So
and why it's so hard from them to move from knowledge comprehension into action? Why basically all the humanity today are again stuck in knowledge comprehension, as they don't want or they don't feel the need to move into this action, to make contact with this concrete new reality? Why they are all stuck?
Because they're programmed that way. See, human beings have to realize eventually that they are programmed, and they function through automatisms all the time. So it maintains them in a in an inferior consciousness. See? So they're always recuperated by that consciousness. And it's very hard for them to realize otherwise, to shift to another consciousness, because they're programmed that way. So even if they're in contact with a person that can unveil everything to them, they have a tendency to filter that information through their concepts and knowledge and everything. See? So it prevents them from opening their eyes to another reality. See? So they're prisoner of that through their own volition, you know.
And the key in order to escape from this prison is to make a lot of contacts with the people like you, or is not they need to practice.
Well, the contact is the main thing, and then to want to need the contact with a person that can make them see beyond psychological observation. The person has to suffer from that consciousness, that inferior consciousness. So when people suffer enough, they're more open to another reality, see? But they can't imagine that reality. People have a hard time imagining that they are automatons, biological automatons. But that's the way it works, see? Especially when you're totally unconscious of those automatism and those programs, you can't realize that everything is predetermined by the programs, see? And the automatism and the memory. See, your experience with other people that are not awakened, other people that function psychologically. So it's transferred from generation to generation. So people perceive that as the transfer of consciousness. They perceive that as reincarnation. You see? They think they will reincarnate. Why? Because they identify themselves to programs. You see? They don't know that they were influenced to react in a certain way. So it's transferred. The consciousness of the parents is transferred to the child, because the parents can't explain life's mechanism to the child. See? They can't stop the transfer from one incarnation to another. See? Because the child is a new incarnation, you see. But people don't see it like that. It's the product of the man and the woman, But the same thing, and then it incarnates physically, but mentally it's the same thing. At the psychic level, you have a reincarnation of the consciousness of the parents. That's how it perpetuates all the time. So at a certain time or certain moment, certain individual realize the play, they realize that how it works. So they awaken to what? To the mechanism of the system. But it's not obvious. So a person that suffers enough, he's more open to that reality. And he can check it, he can verify it by himself after. It has nothing to do with belief. It has to do with your own observation. But at first, a person needs a little help from another person that is awakened to start realizing what's going on.
And how do you do this differentiation between your own observation and the common belief or the common or the collective consciousness? Because sometimes you will think that this is my own belief, but maybe that will be the relicat or the they will have still some interpretation of the collective consciousness. How you can be sure of, okay, this information comes from me, and this is not from the collective consciousness?
Because you investigate it, you observe it in your daily life. It's not a question of belief, it's a question of facts. It's scientific. Science, like I said at the beginning, science is based on observation by one individual at first. He realized something, he theorizes something, and then the theory is proven by him or other individual. So you can observe it in your everyday life. If you can't observe it, it's because you're still influenced by psychological consciousness. But when you're in contact with a person that can observe it, he will facilitate you observing it, you see? And give you information about that. And then you can experiment. The proof of the science, of this science, of the science of the system, is the fact that everybody that realizes it can see it, can observe it in his own laboratory, in his own life. See? That's the way it works. It's not a belief. It's a fact that you can observe. Just like gravity or anything else. See? Why do people believe in gravity? They can observe it. You know what I mean? If you jump from a second story, you'll see what the gravity is. So when you fall, you see what gravity is. So when something slips from your hand, it breaks. That's gravity. So you have the proof, but that doesn't mean you can observe it as gravity all the time. See? Newton discovered the laws of gravity, but before he discovered that, before he realized the laws of gravity, he knew about gravity, but not in the same way he realized it. You see? So then he could explain it. See? Why? Up to a certain point. Then Einstein came along and explained it even more.
So Newton had a precognition of it, of gravity.
Not only a precognition of it, because he could explain it scientifically up to a certain point. Just like any science, it's up to a certain point. Today it's more quantum mechanics, and it's different from the old science, more empirical science. It's more complicated because people are not adjusted to that kind of reality. Even the scientists are not adjusted mentally. If a scientist would be awakened to systemic reality, he would have a better chance of grasping the subtleties of quantum reality. See? Because quantum reality, at the quantum level, when the quantum level is observed, it changes. See? If it's not observed, it's in a state of flux. When it's observed, it becomes it's not flux anymore. It becomes a form of some kind. There's an action of some kind. Only when it's observed. See?
Yeah, it's observator theory, like the theory of observator. When you put your consciousness on things,
same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Consciousness has a consciousness is very powerful. Just like unconsciousness is powerful against you. You see? Once you're conscious of something in real time, then it's totally different. It molds itself to your consciousness. You see? It stops from it stopped the imposition of automatism. Just the fact that you observe it, because you're conscious. So programs and automatism are powerful because of your unconsciousness. If you're conscious, it interferes. In the same way that absorbing information, if you refer to your old concept, it interferes. See? Same thing. Same principle.
Same thing, same principle that you can transpose from quantum science to human being. That you say from the theory of observator to the concrete reality of the mechanism of different programs that control you through your unconsciousness. This is the same phenomenon.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
And you mentioned a lot of things that program biological robots in order to define the human being. I'm sure that some people will say, okay, so we are only program, only biological robots, but where Charles puts the soul, the spirit, all of those, concepts from the ancient people?
Well, it's because of the memory of the soul that people are biological robots. See? So that's the problem. And especially the emotional charge in the memory. That's what activates the robot. In other words, the automatism. See? People will say, I can't help it. It's overwhelming me. What is overwhelming them? It's the programs, it's the automatism, and it's the memory, the emotional charge in the memory. See, it's all a package, a deal. So that's what makes them suffer from life, because they don't know about that. See, they're not conscious of the fact that they are manipulated by memory, by programs, etc., etc. What was your question again?
It was a question regarding that the people will, for sure, when they will see the video, they will say, wow, it's very cold, because, Charles are only talking about robots, programming, but where Charles puts the concept of soul, so
okay.
You answer it, and the concept of spirit,
Okay. Yeah, well, it's a question of consciousness, you see? The spirit is the spirit of the system. Right? If you're in a psychological consciousness, you're in the spirit of the psychological consciousness. See? People think about spirit as something or someone. you know. They anthropomorphize the spirit. But the spirit is the essence of something, like the spirit of the system. But when I use we shouldn't use the term spirit because it's too charged by all kinds of concept or personalized concepts. You see? So.
Sorry, you mentioned something very important. You mentioned the suffering. You know, when you present the fact that some people will come to your concept, to your videos or book. You know, this is because most of them experiencing a lot of suffering. And from your perspective, where does the suffering come from?
Well, the suffering comes from, that's what I was talking about. The suffering comes from the fact of the unconsciousness of the person towards the programs and the automatism and the emotional charge of the memory of their soul. See? But the soul, that's an old concept. It's a dimension where information is registered. Information, life functions on information. So it has to be stored somewhere, okay? So it's stored in a dimension. It's not physical. Before life, before the universe, there is that dimension. It's that dimension that creates the information that creates matter. See? There's information before energy. There's no information, there's less energy or no energy. So information is the basis of life. In other words, if there's no information, accumulated information, there's no life. What makes life life is the evolution of information. See? So the more there is action in life, in all facets of life, there's accumulation of information. That's how it evolves.
So information is this is not like static data. Like by experience, you're like updating this
always
database of information.
exactly. You're always updating. So you're always, once you awaken, you're always in evolution. There's no limit. See, but you got to awake to the fact of systemic reality. That you are, when you're not awakened, you are subjected to programs and the mechanism of the system, but without consciousness of it. So, an animal functions like that. Man is half and half. The psychological consciousness is a transition between animal consciousness and human consciousness or superior consciousness. Superior consciousness equals to realizing and experimenting the system, how it works. See? Observing the system. Then you're more, you participate creatively with the system. You can't avoid programs and automatism, but under your control. See? Otherwise, you're not conscious of it. You're being manipulated by the system or the programs. That's the difference. That's the shift. You see, some people think they can function without programs, without automatism. it'd be a vegetable, you know. So the energy's got to come from somewhere. So it's got to accumulate. The information accumulates. Every time you live something, it registers. Depends how it is registered. If you're conscious of the mechanism, then it registers in another way, and in the sense that it benefits you. You're there at the helm to see if it benefits you or if it doesn't benefit you. You see? So when you're not conscious of the mechanism, sometimes it benefits you, sometimes it doesn't. But you're not in control of that. You're being manipulated by the system. That's the difference between unconsciousness and meta-consciousness, or psychological consciousness and meta-consciousness. See?
But either psychological consciousness or meta consciousness, you are still part of the system. I'm saying that because people will think, yes, like in the Matrix movie, I want to escape from this system, I want to escape from this program, because this is very cold. Huh? People will get maybe afraid of it, and maybe we need to depolarize this kind of program system, because when we are using this kind of words, they will always think about the Matrix movie, and they will feel prisoner in it.
Well, it's normal that they feel prisoner, and they want to escape from the system, because they're totally unconscious of how the system works. You see, so they try to escape the system by going to Tibet and sitting on a rock for 1 year. That's not the way to escape the system. You can't escape the system per se. You realize how it works. Then you have no choice but to adapt yourself to how it works, how the system works. But then you're conscious of the system. The problem with humanity is that they're not conscious with the system. That's all. They imagine all kinds of things, but it's their imagination and through the old concepts that influence them. Whether it's Buddhism or whateverism. So they have to discover how it works, but they need a little push. The little push is the fact that they suffer from all that, and then they're more open. They become more open if they are in contact with that reality. Just like people would listen to those videos, then they know where to go or experiment or try. Maybe, it will help them to escape from their unconsciousness. Not from the system, but from their unconsciousness. That's the problem. They can't see it. That's why they call it the invisible. See? Or the unconscious. Well, the unconscious, you're not conscious of the unconscious. You got to become conscious of what they call the unconscious. See? It's not conscious because people have no idea of the reality or the mechanical reality of the system. See? They can't imagine it's mechanical. That's the problem. It has to be something else, superior to them. See?
Yeah,
It's not a question of superior or not. It's a question of awakening to that reality. See? That's what we call the superior mental, the superior mind. Simple.
Yes, and this is the difficulty of this, awakening, because the people are not even aware that they are asleep,
Exactly.
So occult. This is so occult that they are not even aware. They are not aware. Because
No.
we are talking about understanding consciousness versus unconsciousness, but they don't have the consciousness of their own unconsciousness. They don't know they are sleeping.
No.
They are doing their daily basis life. They are in automatic pilot, and for them, this is the concrete reality.
Exactly.
It's very hard, from them. Even if some people will see this video or other content like that, they will not even catch it. They will say this is madness, or this is not the concrete reality. This is the difficulty of this thing, because they had to live their old consciousness in order to embrace this new reality. But it's a jump in a void,
Yeah,
and,
it's a quantum jump. See? They have to let themselves live that quantum jump. So imagine. So it's hard to not be influenced by all the memories, all the concept, etc., etc. Because then a person is faced to his what I called his individuality, or he's lonely, he's by himself. See, and then he has fears of being alone, because all his insecurities are based on that. You see, a child, when he's very young, he lives that kind of fear of being alone. He knows instinctively that he can't survive by himself. That's the fear people have when they envision another consciousness or that quantum leap. They're faced with the void of their own experience. That's the wall, the thick wall that stops them from going from one consciousness to the other, from shifting from one consciousness to the other. That's the problem. It's totally occult to them. So, when we talk about awakening, most people are sleeping very profoundly. Okay? So the more fear, the more profound it is. So
we are speaking about awakening, and that reminds me our precedent topic in the present video regarding the different technological revolution. And the current technological revolution, the AI, the AI revolution, and so on. And I want to think of it because we are mentioning, that, again, biological robots, the human are only like an amalgam of different programs. And someday, one person will say, okay, but with this kind of revelation, what is the difference between a human being and even AI technology? If we are going in this perspective of human being is only an amalgam, a group of programs, and the AI technology, it's basically from the technological perspective the same. What's the difference from this amalgam of program AI and amalgam of different programs human being?
consciousness. That's the big difference. A program or AI is not conscious. It's very intelligent. it can do feats of analysis superior to man, because it has no consciousness. It just does it. It's totally automatized. See? But that doesn't mean, even if it looks or it seems intelligent, that doesn't mean it has consciousness. Okay? Man will never be able to create the equivalent of himself, because it's biological. It took billions of years to create what we are through evolution. So man is just mimicking nature or the system. He's trying to mimic the system. That's the way scientist or a man, innovative man, is trying to discover life. See? He invents things like that. So the computer is the equivalent of how he works, you know, how his psychic works. See?
And AI too. Maybe
Yeah.
AI is a fact that we want to
Exactly.
create, collective data, maybe
Yeah.
in order to reproduce, to mimic the consciousness.
So what happens with AI is that it instantly has a perfect memory. In other words, he can go and get information very, very fast, because there's no doubt. See? It's just mechanical. So bop, 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 he goes and gets information very fast. See, people can think that this is consciousness. See, but it's not consciousness as man has. And there's different level of consciousness, like we talked about. Psychological consciousness, animal consciousness, and superior consciousness, or systemic consciousness, or meta-consciousness. So we're far from that with AI, you know. With AI, you just have to pull the plug, so, or not use it. But we are using it different ways.
Do you think that AI will accelerate our own evolution?
Of course.
Yes.
Of course, because people will realize that how programs and automatism of AI is superior to them, you know, and they will once they receive that shock, when once they're shocked by that and they realize what's going on, and they compare themselves to that, they will realize that they function in the same way. It's just that the information is there, but it's the accessibility to the information is altered or altered by psychological consciousness or reflection all the time, and resistance, psychological resistance, doubt and everything. If you don't doubt, if you have no doubt, and you function more according to the system, you have instant recall, depending on the context. You don't have to remember just to live the exercise of remembering. You know what I mean? Or force to yourself to remember. In context, you will remember. If you experiment with that, it's that once you absorb information, and there's less interference, of course, it registers, and then in context it comes back very easily. But you have to have faith in that. In other words, you got to be you gotta be, to have faith, you gotta be adjusted to that reality. Otherwise you doubt it. But if you're, the more you are adjusted to that reality, the more you absorb information that in that way, etc., you don't have the doubt anymore that that's the way it works. See? So in context, it comes back, boom, like that. Even if when you're not in context, context, you have no memory of anything. Okay? Because you're not in context. In context is the equivalent of being in the experience. So then it comes back, poof. Once you know that, once you experiment that, you have faith in that, in the sense that the more you live it, the more you adjust yourself to that reality. So you become a little bit like AI, in the sense that you have the accessibility to the information. See? So AI doesn't have any doubt. It just executes. Bum, bum, bum. It goes and gets the information because you put it in context when you ask your question. So it grabs this, and then everything that has to do with your question, goes and get it. There's nothing stopping AI from getting that information. He's not programmed to doubt. That's what I mean. But man, psychological man, is programmed to doubt. Because he doesn't know how it works. So he has doubts. Because it's normal, he doesn't know. So he bases himself on his fears of not knowing and everything. So doubt is fear. The doubt is to fear not being sure of something. But once you know the mechanism, you experiment with it. That's it. It's not a question of belief. When I was talking about faith, is that you know it works like that. So, yes.
Yes, it's absolute.
Yeah, it's more absolute.
No. Yeah. So doubt comes from fear and interfering, because you mentioned the fact that a lot of humans interfering in the process. Yeah. Interfering comes from fear too?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All the psychological consciousness comes from fear, from insecurity. It's nourished by that information. If people want insight on all of this, they can read my book,
Genesis of the New Man.
No, and that's in French, but in English it's Vibrational Psychogenetics.
Okay.
We leave a
link
in the description.
And of course we have the book, but the most important thing is to make this famous contact with you, Yes. Because you have the book, but the better thing is to...
Yeah, somebody wants to more elaborate more or know a little more.
Maybe one last question. We were speaking about the system, all the different programs, and either you are in the subject of the system, or either you can be in the engineering of it. You can't except from the system because you are part of the system, whatever you are doing. Is it correct to say that finally, in the absolute perspective, we are the system?
we are the consciousness of the system. Once we awaken, we become the consciousness of the system. Otherwise, the system has no consciousness. That's the purpose of evolution. See, once a person awakens to that reality, the system awakens to the same reality because we're part of the system. We're the consciousness of the system. It's a loop. See? It finalizes the loop.